In Canada right now, we're having a bit of a scandal over the temporary foreign worker program. Now this is, as the name suggests, when people are brought in from other countries to Canada to do jobs which employers claim that there's no one to do. There's a labor shortage in, whatever particular field it is that they're being called in for. Now, this has become very big news because there's been a lot of revelations regarding abuse of these workers by employers like McDonald's and Tim Hortons. And some of these are very horrible stories, like having dormitories where the employees are brought in from, say, the Philippines, and then they're not allowed to leave. Like, they're literally locked in these dormitories in clear violation of human rights. Now, this has become an even bigger story when an independent think tank has come out with some information that they think shows that this temporary foreign worker program actually increases unemployment in Canada in certain fields and certain parts of the country. The report by the independent think tank CD Howe seems to give a pretty good argument that the influx of temporary foreign workers has actually caused an increase in the rate of unemployment in Canada. Now, it does show that in 2002, when the program was primarily going, or at least at that time, there was about 101,000 temporary foreign workers. 10 years later, that number has increased to 338,000 people. And they say this increase has caused at least some increase in unemployment during that time. For part of the time period in question, the unemployment rates in BC and Alberta were 7% and 5% respectively, lower than the Canadian average at the time, and as such possibility, a suggestion that employers were indeed having a hard time finding workers. But the report found the two provinces saw their unemployment rates change by a larger amount than the rest of Canada, both when unemployment was descending before 2007 and when the jobless rate started increasing after that. On average, the variation in the unemployment rate due to the whole period was 2.3 percentage points in the rest of Canada and 6.2 percentage points in Alberta and British Columbia. The report says, which suggests the program potentially accelerated the rise in unemployment by about 3.9 percentage points in the two provinces between 2007 and 2010. Now, the particular companies that use this temporary foreign worker program say that there is a labor shortage, meaning what they're saying is that they've got these jobs in very remote areas and the money that they offer is not enough to get people to go and move very, very far away into isolated areas for the amount of money that they're offering. And as a result, they need these temporary foreign workers to come in and do that job. However, I think it's actually very important to note that when they do this, they're essentially making an admission. By the laws of the market, including the labor market, because capitalism does treat labor like any other commodity, which is subject to the market like every other commodity, they're not offering enough to make people go to these places. And they don't want to pay enough to get people to go to these places. Thus, when the market for labor doesn't work out in the favor of the capitalist, that's unacceptable. And then it all gets moved around. And there's manipulations of the market to go in the capitalist's favor, like bringing in desperate people from the third world. It's also important to note that when people here do these jobs, a lot of these jobs, like I said, predominantly McDonald's and Tim Hortons, they are offering part-time minimum wage jobs, which are not enough for people to live on. Now, understand that. People aren't going to these jobs because they don't make enough money. They don't get enough hours to actually survive. If you're not actually paying enough to, lay the cost of reproducing the worker, then people literally are not going to show up. But that's what the capitalists want. They want a labor force where they can do that. And these things that they're doing to foreign workers, like locking them in dormitories, banning them from being able to contact the outside world, driving them into very slave-like conditions, that is what they want to do to us. That's what they want to do to first world workers, but they can't get away with it. This is the true face of the capitalist class. This is what they want to do. This is the conditions that, they would bring us back to if they had half a chance. In a lot of these cases, they are only offering part-time minimum wage, which means even someone on social assistance could still work like one of these jobs like McDonald's or Tim Hortons and then still receive social assistance because they would make so little. And this does happen actually quite a lot. They just report their earnings, and then whatever it is that they got from the job, they simply deduct from social assistance so they don't have to pay out as much. But what really is this? These types of jobs are not just McDonald's, Tim Hortons, but Walmart. Walmart is especially very bad for offering people only part-time and minimum wage. Social assistance comes in and essentially subsidizes what it is the capitalist is unwilling to pay in order to reproduce the worker. As Marx very well said, if you don't pay a worker enough to actually survive, not live, survive, he won't come in the next day and work. Unless you get something like the state through taxation to subsidize the existence of the worker. So now, essentially, what percentage or what amount of wealth or surplus value that should have gone to the employee to pay for his reproduction is being passed off onto the state, and that the capitalist is keeping for himself and then usually not contributing to through getting out of paying taxes. Essentially, the public is subsidizing the wages that the capitalist is not paying the employee because, well, frankly, they can get away with it. But here's another really interesting thing to try to keep in mind. Who is being brought in to do these jobs? People in the third world. So once again, even when a factory isn't sent to the third world like it was in NAFTA, or sent to China or India or Bangladesh and all these places where they get much higher rates of exploitation, in these cases, they literally don't even have to do that anymore. Service industry jobs are things that you cannot send to the third world because they have to be here right now. They can now bring people in for those higher rates of exploitation. So even in our own countries, we're now continuing to use the third world as a cheap labor supply, even for the service industry. And their benefits do pass on to us as customers in the first world. I think we do really have to keep all this in mind as there's much discussion about what should be done with the temporary foreign worker program. Now, Jason Kenney, the immigration minister, says, well, no, Canadians always have the first shot at all the jobs. But this is not true. We know that this is not true. Like, he's giving a falsehood here. We do have to keep in mind the class nature of these people being brought in to do labor. It is not just some people are being brought in to be given a chance to work here. They're coming into higher rates of exploitation. They're not making the same wages as regular Canadian workers in the first world would receive. They're receiving much less. They're going under a higher rate of exploitation. And that's what this is about. And that very fact is what's missing from the entire discussion on what should be done about the temporary foreign worker program. Thank you for watching. Please comment and rate the video. If you liked it, hit subscribe or check out some of these other great videos. If you wish, share it on social media. While you're at it, why don't you follow me on Twitter? And if you got time, go on over to the MRN bookstore and check out some of the latest books available.